The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Everyone asks me, where should I go? Where should I go to have the most amount of freedom? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know what the world's going to look like in 6 months. I don't even know what it's going to look like in a month. So I know this is your profession, this is your business. So where the hell can people go right now to have some liberty and freedom?
The reality is that I think so. Every situation is different, and there are going to be certain. The answer that you don't want to hear is that there is no perfect place.
Right.
There's no place that somebody's. You've got this wish list of the 10 things that are important to you, and you're going to get 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless your wish list is, I don't want to have any freedom. I want people to scream at me all the time about stuff. There's
then the world is your oyster.
Right. Exactly. You're in luck. But if you think, what, I just want to dial it back and sort of live my life. I want to go back to 2019 where, I was irritated by certain things, but by comparison now, it just seems like what a paradise that was. And here are the things that are really most important to me. I want my, I want to have, whatever, COVID freedom. I want my kids to go to a normal school where they're going to be taught normal, real math and science and not this woke doctrine. I want to be somewhere where it's safe and I don't have to, step over heroin needles and human feces when I walk out in the streets, and all these different things that everybody's going to have their wish list, right? You're not probably going to find every single one, and you're going to have to make compromises. That's the deal. You're just going to have to make compromises. I went to Mexico to have my daughter because I didn't want, for me for that period in time, the only thing that mattered to me was COVID flexibility. I didn't give a shit about anything else. And to be honest, my experience in Mexico was fantastic. It was really great. I was in Cancun. It was wonderful. COVID did not factor into my life at all. And that was the most important thing for me because, I wanted the medical care was great. I mean, obviously that was non-negotiable, but I knew that going into it. It was really exceptional, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be an issue, that they weren't going to have some silly change and then to say dad can't be in the delivery room or whatever, just something, or like, mom's got to wear a mask while she's in labor because we're afraid of any of that sort of stuff. I was like, I am not going to tolerate any of this. And so that was the place that we knew we were going to have. We had everything arranged with the doctors. It was like, if they make a change, just want to make sure we're on the same page. Like, yeah, we're cool. It's fine. And so Mexico was great because that was the priority for me at the time. And I think there are places everywhere, honestly, and everybody's got to, think very deliberately and methodically about the priorities, the things in your life that are most important, your kids, your, just whatever, sanity, conflict, all these different things, and think through what's really important to you. That's number one. Number two is you have to think globally while simultaneously very locally. And what I mean by that is you've got to consider the entire world in your universe of options, but don't look at it as sort of big political entities like, Mexico or, the US or, whatever, Montana or something like that, because every neighborhood, every town, every county, municipality is going to be different. And you might find that your world changes entirely just by moving across the county line, or by moving 2 cities over or something like that. Where I was, Mexico is a great example because I was in Cancun, which is in the Mexican state of Quintana Roo. And every place in Mexico had its own, they had this traffic light system. You were red or yellow. They came up with a 4th traffic light. I don't remember what the hell it was, but it didn't matter because it didn't factor into my life. It didn't matter. They would say, oh, we're changing the color. And people go, oh, whatever. But it was different depending on where you were in Mexico. So if you went to certain neighborhoods in Mexico City, it was a certain way. If you went to a different state, like Quintana Roo, it was a certain way. And even within Quintana Roo, it was different depending on where you were. Cancun was very interesting because they recognized very quickly, we're going to go broke. Like, we don't have the luxury that the United States has where they just get to print money and go into debt and all these things. they actually have to work. And they knew they had this cash cow. They said, well, there's all these American tourists coming down here to Cancun because it's a free place and we can't mess that up. So they kept everything open, but if you went down the road somewhere else, they were tightening things up, whatever. So local matters a whole lot. And I think that's definitely worth very strong consideration, even in places that are, let's say more relatively free, like Florida. Depending on where you go in Florida, there's going to be, it's just really all about who you're surrounding yourself with.
That was my exact experience in Florida. When I was there, let's see, again, this was probably February, March of this year. The first thing I did is go on my phone. I tried to research which place had gotten rid of the mask mandates the longest, like which counties, which areas, because I figured those would be the places that would have the most freedom. And so I ended up going to the West Coast of Florida, and I got down to Naples. And I don't know if you've been there, but it was fantastic. I mean, it was just like going back to 2019, but then I had my event. So I had to go to Miami and do some research there. And it was basically California.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Your life, even in Florida, is going to be completely different depending on which side of Alligator Alley you're on.
Yeah.
So if you're in downtown Miami versus, Naples or Ocala, or something like that. Yeah. I had a friend, I have a good friend, Francisco from Southwest Florida, who came to visit me, actually in Mexico after my daughter was born. He was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, it's not a really big deal where I live, and it never really has been. And that's cool. But yeah, you drive 2 hours across the swamp and it's totally different. Yeah. And a lot of things, by the way, that it's not just COVID, it's a lot of things that are going to be totally different. I mean, even last, a lot of the peaceful protests from last summer, they were really different depending on, where specifically you might've been. So yeah, I think local matters a whole lot, but definitely start by expanding your thinking to the entire world. And when you think about it like that, you've got there's a lot of options. And if you sort of match that up with a real, honest, deliberate list of priorities, you're going to find several answers. You really will. And if you have the flexibility to stay at least a little bit mobile, you're going to have an easier time. But, I think as well, nobody can live their lives constantly trying to move around from place to place. And that's why I think ultimately, what I hope is that, people that get it, people that really understand, will eventually sort of migrate together. And, that helps create a lot more power, that strength in numbers. I think we'll eventually see that. Frankly, that's where I think this goes, is when you'll start seeing, and then we'll find out how well the market really works. Because you'll see all these places that are, all these other places that are locked down and fearful and panicked, and other places that, are local economies, they're booming because everybody's just out living their lives. And again, in all things, it's the way that they decide they want to raise their children and the things that they want to put in schools, and travel, and the businesses that are running all these things. So that's what I hope for. I hope that eventually people that are kind of like mind about these things will eventually congregate together, hopefully in a warm and pretty place.
Yeah.